In Bob Ross' Art of Chill, 2 to 4 players compete as rival artists to paint landscape features like happy little trees and fluffy clouds by using cards that represent paints and brushes. Apply paint to your palette, then use a brush to paint a feature. The more you paint, the more chill points you earn. The first player to reach the chill space on the chill meter wins the game. Game overview. There will always be one active painting that Bob and the players are working on. Each painting has 3 features that players can paint to earn chill points. The possible features are fluffy clouds, almighty mountains, wondrous water, happy little trees, and charming cabins. Each feature requires certain paint colors and one brush in order to paint it. Bob will move from left to right along the Bob track at the bottom of each painting. As soon as Bob moves onto a space with a feature on it, he paints that feature. Some features have a Bob bonus that is awarded to players who paint the feature before Bob does. Art supply cards are collected and used to paint features. Each card may be used as either a paint or a brush. Each player's palette contains 2 paint areas, A and B, each of which can hold up to 3 different paints. Players apply paint to their palette, then play a brush from their hand to paint a feature. Setup. Now let's look at how to play the game in detail, starting with the setup. Unfold the easel and set it up where all players can see it. Place the game board in front of the easel. Shuffle the chill cards and place them face down in a draw deck on the designated space on the game board. Give each player a palette, along with a chill cube and 3 feature markers that match their palette color. Place your feature markers on the colored area of your palette and then place your chill cube on the first space of the chill meter marked with a 0. Shuffle the art supply cards and deal 3 cards to each player. Players may look at their cards but should keep their cards secret. Place the remaining cards face down in a deck in front of the game board. Turn over the top 4 cards and place them face up in a row next to the deck. Leave room for a discard pile. Shuffle the technique cards and place them face down in a deck below the deck of art supply cards. Turn over the top 4 cards and place them face up in a row next to the deck. Shuffle the painting panels and place them in a stack. The panels are double-sided. It does not matter which paintings are facing up. Turn over the top painting panel and insert it into the easel. Place the Bob mover on the easel shelf on the first space of the Bob track. Now you're ready to play. The player who most recently painted a picture goes first, with gameplay proceeding clockwise around the table. On your turn. On your turn, you will follow 2 steps in this order. Roll the die, perform actions. Each player completes both steps of their turn before the next player starts their turn. Roll the die. The effect of the die is resolved immediately after rolling. Any action taken as a result of a die roll does not count as one of your standard actions performed in step 2 of your turn. Let's look at the possible die rolls. If you roll draw a card, you may draw 1 art supplies card from the top of the deck and add it to your hand. If you roll the palette, you may play 1 paint card from your hand to your palette. If you roll the hand, you may perform 1 free action of your choice. We will explain all of the possible actions in detail later in this video. If you roll Bob, you must perform the following 2 steps. First, draw the top chill card and place it face up on the space next to the deck. After the first chill card is revealed, there will always be 1 visible chill card at any time during the game. Chill cards that begin with the phrase, "When this card is revealed," have a one-time effect that is resolved immediately. After it is resolved, the card remains face up, but it will no longer have any effect on the game. All other chill cards have a lasting effect that remains active until the next chill card is drawn. Anyone who takes a turn while the card is visible is affected, regardless of which player drew the card. For example, if this chill card is active on your turn, you will receive 1 extra chill point if you paint a feature using cadmium orange. The second thing you do when you roll Bob on the die is to move the Bob mover 1 space to the right along the Bob track. If he moves onto a spot with a feature, he paints that feature. Players may still paint a feature after Bob paints it, but they will not earn the Bob bonus. If Bob reaches the last space on the Bob track, he finishes the painting, which we will explain later. Perform actions. After you finish the die phase, you will perform your actions. You may perform 3 actions on your turn. You may perform the same action multiple times, and you may perform them in any order. For example, you could start by drawing an art supply card for 1 action, then apply paint to your palette for your second action. Then draw another art supply card for your third action. The actions to choose from are draw an art supply card, apply paint to your palette, wash your palette, sweep the art supply cards, earn a technique card, and paint a feature. Now let's go over each action in detail. Draw an art supply card. Take an art supply card either from the top of the deck or from the row of face-up cards. If you take a face-up card, replace it with a new card from the top of the deck. There will always be 4 face-up art supply cards to choose from. There is no limit to the number of cards you may have in your hand. Each card drawn uses 1 action. The exception to this last rule is for wild cards. Wild cards may be used as any one paint color when painting a feature or earning a technique card. Because they are valuable, taking a face-up wild card requires 2 actions instead of 1. If you get lucky and draw a wild card from the top of the face-down deck, it only uses up 1 action. Apply paint to your palette. Play 1 paint card from your hand to either paint area on your palette. Turn the card so that the paint is at the top of the card. Each paint area, A and B, can hold up to 3 paints. Note that if you play 2 or more paints to the same area, those paints are now mixed and may not be used or removed individually. If you play a wild card to your palette, you do not have to declare what color it represents until you use it to paint a feature. Each paint played from your hand to your palette uses 1 action. Wash your palette. If you have paints on your palette that are not useful for the current painting, you may wash them away to make room for new paints. To wash your palette, choose 1 paint area and remove all of the paints from that area and discard them. Each paint area requires 1 action to wash. Sweep the art supply cards. If you do not like the 4 face-up art supply cards, you may sweep them away and get new options. Discard all 4 cards and replace them with the top 4 cards from the deck. Each sweep of all 4 cards requires 1 action. Earn a technique card. Technique cards allow you to practice your technique for certain brushes or paints. To earn a technique card, discard 2 cards from your hand that match a brush or paint shown on the technique card you want. When you earn a technique card, immediately score 2 chill points by moving your chill cube ahead 2 spaces on the chill meter. Then take the card and place it in front of you face up, and for the rest of the game, you will earn 1 extra chill point every time you paint a feature that requires the brush or the paint shown on that technique card. Earning a technique card uses 1 action. There is no limit to the number of technique cards you may earn and have in front of you. Use a brush to paint a feature. The key to earning chill points is painting features. If you have all of a feature's required paints on your palette and the required brush in your hand, you may now use the brush to paint a feature. This requires 1 action. Each player may paint all of the features in a painting, even if another player or Bob has already painted it. However, each player may paint each feature only 1 time per painting. To paint a feature, discard the brush from your hand as well as all of the used paints from your palette. Then score points for the feature you painted by moving your chill cube ahead on the chill meter. Start by scoring 1 point for each paint required to paint the feature. Do not count the brush. Now place one of your feature markers on the first empty space under the corresponding feature on the game board to show that you have painted it. If you are the first player to paint that feature, you earn 2 extra chill points. If you are the second player to paint it, you earn 1 extra chill point. Finally, add any bonuses that apply. The possible bonuses are Bob bonus. If Bob has not already painted the feature, give yourself the bonus shown on the Bob track for that feature. Some features do not have a Bob bonus. Chill card bonus. Check the active chill card to see if it grants any bonus for the feature you painted. Technique card bonus. Earn 1 point for each technique card you have in front of you that matches the brush or paint used to paint the feature. Painting examples. You must have all of the required paints on your palette before you may paint a feature. Even though this player has the proper brush in their hand, they may not paint a feature because they do not have sap green on their palette. When painting a feature, you may use paints from both paint areas on your palette. After painting the feature, discard all of the paints along with the brush. If you only use paints from one paint area of your palette, you do not need to discard the paints in the other paint area. In this example, only the paints from paint area B would be discarded along with the brush. The paints in paint area A would remain on the palette. You may not paint a feature if any of the required paints have been mixed with paints that are not required. In this example, even though the player has all of the required paints on their palette, they may not paint the feature because the sap green has been mixed with cadmium orange, and cadmium orange is not one of the required paints. Finishing a painting. As soon as one player has painted all 3 features of the painting or Bob moves onto the last space of the Bob track, that painting is considered finished and it's time to move on to the next one. Immediately pause the game, even if it's in the middle of a player's turn, and perform the following steps. Award the appropriate number of chill points to the player who painted the feature. Discard the painting panel and replace it with a new one. Return the Bob mover to the first space of the Bob track on the new painting. Return all feature markers from the game board to their owners. Resume the game. If the player who was taking their turn when the painting was finished has any actions left, they may finish their turn. Otherwise, it is the next player's turn. Ending the game. When a player reaches the chill space on the game board, the game immediately ends and that player is the winner. But let's face it, this is a Bob Ross game, so really, everyone's a winner.